coming up.
He received a prize for a naive worldview that we know in 2016 has been an utter failure.
President Obama's failed foreign policy.
These enemies of the United States hate us.
Plus, life-saving advice.
There's kind of a golden moment when you want to intervene.
From America's top docs.
With the right treatment, that danger can be eliminated.
How to protect your heart on today's 700 Club.
We obviously save patients' lives.
Hey, it's a great day for where we are. I hope it's a great day where you are. We're going to have a wonderful show for you today. Listen, you know, I live in Virginia. Virginia was the Old Dominion. It was stable, it was solid, and it was just remarkably well run. And then suddenly, we got invaded. Virginia was invaded by the Clintons. And Terry McAuliffe, who was the fundraiser for Bill Clinton, came in with a lot of money and picked up a seat as governor, so he's now a governor. Now we're learning things about this gentleman. Number one, he wanted to give all the felons the vote as soon as they got out of prison. And he violated the Constitution. The Supreme Court of Virginia said you can't do that. He still wanted to do it some way anyhow. Now we learn that he has a sort of a PAC, and they're giving money. But guess who they're giving the money to? It's something in the neighborhood of $450,000. I've heard as high as $750,000. I don't know which number is right, but it's a lot of money. And he's given it to a woman to run for the state Senate as a Democrat. Okay, but guess who that woman is? She is the wife of the man who is now the deputy director of the FBI in charge of supervising the Hillary Clinton emails. Now, does that not stink to high heaven? I ask you, Terry, isn't that amazing?
Well, I think that's one of the things we're going to be hearing about in the news more and more.
Well, but I mean, it makes you sick. But now it turns out, I listened to one, and I don't have the hard copy on it, that the governor of Virginia, as he was running, received $13 million from donors. But guess who the donors were? Donors to the the Clinton Foundation. I mean, it's this interlocking thing. And then we learned there's a breach of the FEC rules having to do with what the campaign could buy and somebody else could buy. I mean, it
do you think that's why some of these obviously it's why some of these illegal allegations don't stick?
Well, it just...
It's layers deep.
It's just Teflon, and people say, oh, well, that's the Clinton, they can get away with murder. Some poor Army officer is getting a prison sentence for doing a fraction of what Hillary's been doing. Anyhow, they also lied to you. And you remember how the president promised that health care costs would go down by $2,500? You remember that? You remember if Congress passed Obamacare, every Democrat voted for it, not one Republican voted for it. Now the word is out. Starting this fall, I guess it is, premiums aren't going down, they're going up next year, way up.
Well, that news comes as there are also new questions about what we just discussed, the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. Heather Sells has the story.
Early voting has already begun in Texas and Florida, and Donald Trump is hitting the Sunshine State hard. He's making political hay with the news that Obamacare premiums are about to rise sharply. The government says on average 25% next year, and many people will have just one insurer.
It's over for Obamacare, and Hillary Clinton wants to double down and make it more expensive, and it's not going to work.
He's also lashing out against polls that show Clinton ahead.
They are phony polls put out by phony media.
Clinton is campaigning with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is bashing Trump for calling Clinton a nasty woman in the last debate.
Get this, Donald. Nasty women are tough. Nasty women are smart, and nasty women vote.
Clinton is facing a new revelation about the FBI probe into her emails that could raise more suspicions of political favors. The Wall Street Journal reports that Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a longtime friend of the Clintons, steered money to the political campaign of the wife of a top FBI official while the Bureau was investigating her email scandal. McAuliffe's Political Action Committee gave close to $500,000 to her campaign. But the FBI says it's no big deal because the FBI official wasn't involved in the investigation into the Clinton emails until after his wife lost her race.
Critics find it hard to believe that a top FBI official wasn't involved in the department's biggest case, and they call it another example of the questionable probe into the Clinton emails. Trump is calling for an investigation.
Clinton is also dealing with a new undercover video from James O'Keefe's Project Veritas. It shows a political consultant who allegedly worked with the Democratic Party, saying that Clinton authorized the use of Donald Duck costumes at Trump rallies, a potential violation of federal campaign laws.
If the future president of the United States wants ducks on the ground, we will put ducks on the ground.
These issues may or may not spell trouble for Clinton, who appears to enjoy a lead in the polls. She will also campaign in Florida today as both candidates fight to the finish. Heather Sells, CBN News.
You wonder, ladies and gentlemen, you wonder when the American people will wake up. They just say, but apparently they are waking. You go to Florida and the huge crowds for both the Vice President, Pence, and also for the Donald Trump. But Tim Kaine, the Vice President, was down in Florida. He had a rally, and he had all of, 30 people, I think, showed up.
So I think
and everybody's, trumpeting that. Trumpeting, okay. Well, one of the top issues in this presidential election is the Supreme Court. And now it looks like the Democrats are ready for any showdown over judges in the Senate. They're going to break time-honored rules with what was called the nuclear option. John Jessup has that.
Thanks, Pat. Nevada Senator Harry Reid says he's laid the groundwork so that Democrats can stop a Republican filibuster to block Hillary Clinton's nominees for the Supreme Court or other judicial posts if she wins the White House and Democrats take back the Senate. In 2013, when Reid was Senate Majority Leader, he got rid of filibusters against the president's nominees, with the exception of the Supreme Court. Reid told the Talking Points Memo website he believes Democrats will change the rules if necessary so that filibusters can't be used against high court nominees. And, Pat, that, of course, would allow a President Hillary Clinton to get her judges on the Supreme Court.
It will also allow a President Trump to do the same thing. And Harry Reid broke time-honored precedents. But don't you remember, year after year after year, outstanding judges were being brought up, especially for the Circuit Court of the District of Columbia. And I'm thinking of one Hispanic gentleman who was one of the most highly qualified judges. And the Democrats filibustered against him, and the Republicans wouldn't break the filibuster. But you call it the nuclear option, and last year I believe it was the Dems, at least when they had control of the Senate, they just used that nuclear option and just blasted right through. Said, we don't care about your filibuster. We're going to put our people on. They said, we will accept the Supreme Court. Now they're saying, Harry Reid is saying that we don't care. But that's going to come back to bite him real big time. John?
Pat, Iraqi forces are battling ISIS for third day east of the city of Mosul. It is Iraq's second largest city, where ISIS has based its Iraqi capital. Islamic State militants attempted 12 car bomb attacks. All of them blew up before hitting their targets. So far, Iraqi troops have suffered a small number of casualties from mortar rounds. The top commander of U.S. land forces in Iraq said U.S. attack helicopters are striking ISIS targets to support the operation. No casualty report has yet been released. Well, more than 1/4 of all deaths from cancer in the United States are linked by one thing: cigarettes. That's the finding from a new study from the American Cancer Society. The study analyzed health surveys and government statistics on about a dozen cancers related to smoking. It found at least 167,000 cancer deaths in 2014 were from smoking. Even though the numbers have been falling, 40 million adults still smoke cigarettes, and Pat, smoking is still the #1 cause of preventable deaths.
1 in 4 of the cancer deaths as a result of smoking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a country, we give a subsidy to people who grow tobacco. And we make it easy for them to grow it, and we make it legal for them to sell that stuff. It was some time ago that the heads of all the tobacco companies were embarrassed before Congress to finally admit that these cancer things, these sticks they give, were actually nicotine delivery mechanisms to hook people to smoke, and that smoking indeed was a cause of cancer. It's time that we stop subsidizing tobacco. I suggested, and those people in North Carolina and others who grow tobacco, they're marvelous people. They're hard-working farmers in Kentucky and so forth. But I was saying, look, give a tax holiday to these people, even the tobacco companies. Give them a 7 or 8 year tax holiday. Let them accumulate all the money they can during that period of time, and at the end of it, have an absolute ban on the growing, manufacture, distribution, sale of cigarettes. And the horrible thing of what we're doing now, not only have we hooked our people, but we are loading the youth of places like Indonesia. They're all being hooked to smoke, and that's the new, quote, market for cigarettes. We've got to do a ban on it. There's no benefit to be found from it. It is cancerous, and not only cancer, you've got Buerger's disease, you've got all kinds of high blood pressure, all the other things caused by smoking. And it does nobody any good, and then secondhand smoke can actually make people have cancer as well. Stop it. We cannot subsidize that anymore, despite how many people we love from Kentucky or love from North Carolina. We've got to say no more. But the way to do it is to give them a tax break so that over several years they can phase out the work they're doing and get something more beneficial to society. Terry.
Well, coming up, 8 years ago, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace.
The president thought when he came to office, his magnificence and his aura would solve all the world's problems. The fact is, these enemies of the United States hate us, and they didn't change the way they thought because Barack Obama became president.
See why the world is a more dangerous place today than when President Obama first entered the White House.
We have an election coming up that says, okay, we're going to continue the legacy of Barack Obama. We'll have 4 to maybe 8 more years of his policies, or we're going to have a radical change, of course. And so that's what's facing the American people right now. But in 3 months, President Barack Hussein Obama will leave office. His signature accomplishment at home, Obamacare, is absolutely collapsing. But what about his legacy in foreign policy? Our reporter Gary Lane shows us in this in-depth report. Many critics warn that the president will leave the world in much worse shape than the way it was when he found it.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Moments after he was sworn in as the nation's 44th president, Barack Obama unveiled his foreign policy vision.
Our security emanates from the justness of our cause, the force of our example, the tempering qualities of humility and restraint. America must play its role in ushering in a new era of peace.
9 months later, the Nobel Committee awarded him the Peace Prize, not for his accomplishments, but for what he intended to do on the world stage. And now, as Mr. Obama prepares to leave the White House, some security experts are questioning his foreign policy accomplishments and the consequences of his actions. Supporters of the president's policies say he's leaving behind a more peaceful world, and eventually the Middle East will be a safer place. But as critics here on Capitol Hill say, nothing could be further from the truth. He's created a big mess for the next president. Fred Fleitz is a former CIA analyst.
He received a prize for a naive worldview that we know in 2016 has been an utter failure.
During his first inaugural address, the president said he'd take steps to end America's wars.
We will begin to responsibly leave Iraq to its people and forge a hard-earned peace in Afghanistan.
But despite that promise, peace didn't come to Afghanistan. The president wanted to withdraw all U.S. forces by late 2014. But instead, a resurgent Taliban wreaked havoc on the country. So Obama had to reverse course. Today, more than 8,000 Americans still remain there. In Iraq, the president withdrew all American troops by the end of 2011, despite being warned repeatedly by top government officials and military advisors, including his own Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, about the potential consequences. But Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine says the president had no choice.
Iraq didn't want our troops to stay, and they wouldn't give us the protection for our troops.
But Panetta has since written in his book that although an agreement was difficult, it could have been done. And critics, including GOP vice presidential candidate Mike Pence, say Obama's premature withdrawal from Iraq helped lead to the rise of the deadly Islamic terrorist group ISIS.
The sacrifices the American soldier made were squandered in Iraq because this administration created a vacuum in which ISIS was able to grow.
And once ISIS was on the scene after Obama's withdrawal from Iraq, it carried out a horrible genocide against Christians, Yazidis, and others in Iraq and Syria, causing a humanitarian crisis in the Middle East and Europe.
You don't walk away from a war when the other team is bringing it to you. That is, I've heard this president say he wants to get out of these wars, but when they bring it to you, you have no choice but to lead and to protect the American people.
Congressman Mike Pompeo is a member of the House Intelligence Committee.
He told us that al-Qaeda was on the run. He has since told us that the ISIS was the JV. This administration has consistently refused to take seriously the threat.
Not only abroad, but here at home, say Pompeo and others. When Omar Mateen murdered 49 Americans in Orlando earlier this year, President Obama refused to call it an act of Islamic terror.
There's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy.
When we have a president who will not admit that we are at war with radical Islam, who won't even use the term, when we portray this threat as some threat from an isolated terrorist group and not a global ideology at war with modern society and Western civilization, we're never going to beat it.
In Syria, critics say thankless U.S. support of moderate rebel groups caused al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and the Islamic State to grow in power and influence. President Obama said he would draw a red line in the sand if Syrian President Assad used chemical weapons against his own people. Assad turned over 1,300 tons of the weapons, but later used a chemical weapon, chlorine gas, against the rebels. Obama took no military action. As a result, Russian President Vladimir Putin stepped up his country's involvement, sending aircraft and troops to help Assad. Republican vice presidential candidate Mike Pence says weak American leadership in the Middle East led to Russia's return to the region.
There's an old proverb that says the Russian bear never dies, it just hibernates.
That bear came out of hibernation 7 years after the Obama administration promised a reset of relations with Russia. And Putin moved not only in Syria, but also in Georgia, Crimea, and Ukraine.
We watched the Russians take 1/5 of a sovereign nation, and America's response was almost nothing. That tells Vladimir Putin he has a green light, and you've seen him use that power.
In Egypt, Mohammed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood took office as president in the summer of 2012. But within months, he had issued a decree that basically gave him unlimited powers. His opponents called it an Islamic coup. Egyptians took to the streets in protest. President Obama demanded the Egyptian army restore Morsi and the Brotherhood to power. Some Egyptians claimed Brotherhood agents and sympathizers in the U.S. government influenced policy. Mohammed El Biari served on the president's Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council. El Biari had praised a Muslim Brotherhood leader and spoke at a 2004 event honoring Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. And the president of the Islamic Society of North America, a group with suspected ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, advised President Obama on immigration and counterterrorism policy.
It is a good deal.
Barack Obama would likely say his greatest foreign policy achievement was the nuclear deal with Iran. But many critics say the administration only accomplished the deal by keeping key parts of it secret.
In the fall of 2016, we have a nuclear deal that can only be described as an enormous fraud. The only way this deal got through is because the details of it were concealed from Congress.
Congressman Pompeo exposed several secret side deals in the agreement.
This president struck a secret deal with the Ayatollah that's really between him and the Ayatollah. It's not even signed by either party. And that will almost always end in a way that does not serve the American people's interests.
In the recent vice presidential debate, Tim Kaine said the Iran deal eliminated Iran's nuclear weapons program. President Bill Clinton's CIA director, James Woolsey, disagrees.
I think it's worse than worthless. I think it may well be the worst international agreement the United States has ever signed. I think it will enhance Iran's ability to move quickly to have a nuclear weapon and not slow it down.
The reason is Iran can continue to enrich uranium, develop advanced centrifuges, and will have a reactor that produces plutonium that is being redesigned by the Chinese and will not be monitored by a process set up by this treaty.
Woolsey is concerned about the cash payments the Obama administration delivered to Iran the same day American prisoners were released in Tehran, ultimately amounting to $150 billion.
We are turning over tens of billions of dollars to them, saying that we're getting away from sanctions. In part, it seems it's more likely that what that is a bribery, essentially, to the Iranians to release some of our people they have grabbed.
Pompeo and others believe the money provided by the U.S. may be used by Iran to spread terrorism and further develop its nuclear weapons program.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
So nearly 8 years after his swearing in, America's Nobel Peace Prize winning president has fallen short of his goal of ushering in a new era of peace, with many analysts warning that the world is now a more dangerous place than when he entered the White House.
The president thought when he came to office, his magnificence and his aura would solve all the world's problems. The fact is, these enemies of the United States hate us regardless of who's in the White House. They hate our way of life, they hate our country, and they didn't change the way they thought because Barack Obama became president.
And they're likely to pose greater danger for the world and the next American president. Gary Lane, CBN News, Washington.
You want 4 more years of that? Interesting. That's a choice now that we have facing us in this nation. Gary, a tremendous job. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that laid it out in vivid detail what we're facing. And it's dangerous. I mean, you know, I've got children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and you want to leave the world a safer place. And yet it's much more trouble because of the feckless administration of the current president. Terry?
Well, each year, 5 million Americans are diagnosed with heart valve disease.
There's kind of a golden moment when you want to intervene, and the longer you wait, the worse the patient is going to get.
Stay tuned for life-saving advice on how to protect your heart. That's next.
If you're listening.
To see this week's most viewed stories, go to CBN.com.
Amazing.
No hospital in America sees more patients for heart and vascular conditions than the Cleveland Clinic. Its team of doctors and the medical staff there have experienced it all. And in today's segment of Protect Your Heart, 3 top cardiologists share information that could save your life. Take a look.
Every day, your heart is hard at work, pumping blood through your body's 60,000 miles of blood vessels. It's something we all take for granted until we feel a skip beat or our heart is racing inside our chests. Protecting your heart means not ignoring these occurrences. They can be harmless or warning signs of trouble ahead. Welcome to the Cleveland Clinic. At the Miller Family Heart and Vascular Institute, people come from around the world to be treated for some of the most advanced cases of heart disease. It's the nation's largest cardiovascular practice and has been rated #1 for over 20 years by U.S. News and World Report. Dr. Bruce Lindsay has over 30 years of experience treating patients with arrhythmias. He's an expert when it comes to treating irregular heartbeats.
The symptoms people have kind of depend on which heart rhythm problem they experience. Some people have just extra beats, and they perceive them as skip beats. For other types of heart rhythm problems, the heart may take off, might be very sudden, where it just takes off and races.
Here's a look at what happens each time your heart beats. An electrical impulse is triggered at the top chambers of your heart. This charge travels around in the walls of the heart, causing it to contract. This action sends blood through the lower chambers of the heart and out to the rest of the body. A healthy heart repeats this cycle over 100,000 times a day. Atrial fibrillation can feel like a heart that is out of control.
Instead of pounding along at an even rate that you could tap out, it's skipping around where it speeds up and slows down and is very disconcerting to the patients.
It's estimated that between 3 to 6 million Americans have atrial fibrillation. Who is at risk for developing this runaway heartbeat? People over the age of 50, with a family history of irregular heartbeats, who are overweight, who have high blood pressure, who drink alcohol, and suffer from sleep apnea. It's important to know that untreated atrial fibrillation can be life-threatening.
The biggest danger with atrial fibrillation is stroke risk. Go to your doctor, tell the doctor about what you're experiencing, let them evaluate it, and they can determine whether this is something that is really benign and doesn't require any treatment, or whether it really does reflect some underlying problem that could be dangerous to you, and then with the right treatment, that danger can be eliminated.
What seems like signs of just getting old could be the warning signs of heart valve disease. Each year, an estimated 5 million Americans are diagnosed with it. And like most heart conditions, it develops slowly over time. Many people don't realize that they have a problem until they are in the more advanced stages of this disease. Here's how the heart valves work. As blood circulates through the 4 chambers of your heart, it travels in one direction. To ensure that blood doesn't travel backwards, 4 different valves open and close at just the right time.
The 2 conditions that can happen to a valve is either it can get blocked, and the medical term is stenosis, or the valve can get leaky, and the medical term is regurgitation.
Dr. Joseph Sabik, in his 20-plus years as a heart surgeon, has performed over 9,000 operations. Many of these operations have been to repair the valves of the heart.
You know, as we age, it's not uncommon that that valve gets calcified. It gets hard. It can get like a seashell, it can get like a rock, and so those leaflets don't open anymore, and that leads to obstruction, and that allows the blood to go backwards. That can happen for several reasons. There can be dilatation, so the leaflets no longer touch, and that allows blood to leak in between the leaflets. Sometimes the valve can get infected, can lead to destruction of part of the valve, or the valve can prolapse or become flail, and that's when the leaflets go backwards.
The result is the heart has to work a lot harder. Everyday activities suddenly become very challenging.
Patients will develop shortness of breath. They're starting to have heart failure. And so the normal activities, they get very winded. If things go on very badly, patients can even have chest discomfort and chest pain.
If you are experiencing any of these warning signs, the time to act is now.
There's kind of a golden moment when you want to intervene on a bad valve, whether it's blocked or leaky, and the longer you wait, the worse the patient is going to get. When patients start knowing that they're having problems, it's a good idea just to go see their primary care doctor, get examined. Someone's going to hear a heart murmur, and then that will start the evaluation.
The aorta is the largest artery in your body. With each heartbeat, oxygen-rich blood is sent throughout your body. This vital part of your circulatory system keeps you alive. Dr. Lars Svensson of the Cleveland Clinic has helped pioneer surgical treatments and techniques that are saving lives around the world. Even with these advancements, early detection of aneurysms is critical.
Most aneurysms do not cause symptoms until they cause extreme pain, and either they burst, rupture, or they cause aortic dissection. And about 40% of patients with aortic dissection die immediately. And then the risk of death is about 1 to 3% per hour until they get to surgery, and the risk of surgery in an emergency situation is much higher.
One of the best ways to help your doctor determine your risk for developing an aneurysm is to know your family's medical history. Has anyone in your family died from an aneurysm? What is your overall health? Do you have high blood pressure or hardening of the arteries? If you smoke or are overweight, you have an even greater risk of developing an aneurysm. Based on your risk assessment, an X-ray, CAT scan, or ultrasound can help detect an aneurysm. Your doctor will evaluate how severe it is and if surgery is your best option. If detected early and treated, patients can go on to enjoy a normal life.
Well, that's one of the joys of being a heart surgeon. We obviously save patients' lives who are in an acute situation like aortic dissection. We not only save their lives, we improve their quality of life, we improve their longevity.
Getting treated in the early stages of heart disease could make a big difference. In some cases, it could even save your life. Remember, your life is a gift from God to be enjoyed and cherished. Act now and stop heart disease from robbing you of all that God has intended for you.
Well, that was part 2 of our 5-part series called Protect Your Heart. If you'd like to watch all of the installments or get a copy to have on hand, log on to cbn.com. We're going to send you a DVD. You can also stream all 5 parts online free of charge, or you can call us. The number is 1-800-700-7000 if you'd like your free copy of Protect Your Heart. These segments are so amazing. I think it really is helpful to know what you can do to prevent all of this, and if you're experiencing some of these things, what can be done?
I hope, Terry, that we've saved some people's lives in this. This is really important. And this is the top level medical stuff we're giving you on this program. It's so well done, and we have a marvelous staff. But the fact that Cleveland Clinic and other these experts like Chauncey Crandall would give their time because they care very much about. You know, I've had that atrial fibrillation, and you're just absolutely exhausted. Mm-hmm. And after a while, I kept having cardioversion. I'd go in, they call it the Pat Zapper. I'd had it so many times. And they knock you out and shock you, and your heart gets back in the sinus rhythm. But I had one of those pacemakers. You felt my pacemaker?
Yeah, I have felt your
You feel that little heart thing?
Yeah, that's a little
thing. Well, that's in there just in case the heart doesn't do, but it just goes boom, 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 boom.
And which is so wonderful. I mean, the change in you energy-wise was amazing.
Oh, unbelievable. But that atrial fibrillation just kills you. And of course, if I knew somebody who had a diseased valve, and it wasn't diagnosed for years, and the poor guy was just exhausted. And, you know, his wife was saying, well, how come you don't get going? What's
get
the matter?
Up and get moving.
Yeah, you're just lazy. Stop it. I mean, he wept. I mean, I was in the hospital. He was crying because the doctors finally found out that he had a diseased valve, and I think they fixed it.
And that's the message in here. It's preventable, and if you have the problem, it can be fixable.
Well,
so
make sure you get it. What do they got to do to get it? Say it again.
Well, they can either call our toll-free number, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go online at cbn.com, and you can get the whole series downloaded there for free. So there you go.
All right, go for it.
Well, still ahead, after having 5 children and 2 divorces, this woman hit the streets.
Living on the street is very hard, especially being a woman. I mean, I've had guns pointed at me. I've been left for dead. This is my fault because I abandoned all my kids, and this is what I get for it.
Hear how an angel set this woman free from a life of pain and guilt.
Welcome back to the 700 Club. 10 transgender soldiers have asked to be recognized as their new preferred gender. The request came within weeks of the Pentagon allowing transgender service members to serve openly. The Defense Department lifted its transgender ban back in July, telling each branch of the military to put together new procedures by October for troops who want to change their gender and stay in uniform. Trans troops are now able to receive medical care and begin changing their gender ID in the Pentagon's personnel system. And you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by going to cbn.com/international. Well, CBN's Orphans Promise is actually helping orphans all around the world. And one of those areas is the territory of Cabagra, Costa Rica. 300 children are getting help with education, food, and Christian teaching. Orphans Promise also partnered with 10 local doctors and more than 40 volunteers for medical outreach in the community. More than 130 people, mainly children, were treated. The outreach also included Superbook, where Gizmo brought games, popcorn, and a pair of rain boots for each child. And you can find out more about CBN around the world by going to cbn.com/international. Pat and Terry are back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
Pam Ausa spent 9 years off and on living on the streets. She could have died there. Instead, Pam received an angelic visit that freed her life forever.
I ran away from home when I was 14. I ended up getting raped, and then I came back home, but I didn't tell my mother because her response would be, that's what you get for running away from home. My mother saw a mirror image of herself in me. So when she would look at me, she would see things of her past in me, but she wouldn't know how to fix it, so she would just get mad. I wasn't experiencing any kind of real love because I hadn't ever had real love. I always just had this imitation of love that it had a requirement to it. As I was growing up, I would learn to try to please her, make her happy. So I learned how to put on different masks. I learned how to get attention by acting stupid. I learned to drink to cover my pain just like she did. That was the role model I had to teach me things. Later on, I'd have kids, thinking, well, if I had kids, then I could have someone to love on and someone to take care of, and that would make my life better. I didn't realize I was going to do the exact same thing to them. It was done to me. I'd start going drinking more and start disappearing a few days here. And next thing you know, it's months at a time. And then it just got to the place to where I just didn't even go pick up my kids no more. I just thought that I guess they'd be better off if I just didn't go get them at all. So that's where a lot of guilt, that's where I started doing drugs. Just stuff to keep me going so I don't have to ever feel. One day, I called my friend to tell her to go pick up my 2 little kids from school. Instead, she called CPS. And so CPS came and they took my kids. I'm really hating myself more than ever. I just really felt very worthless. That's where I started hitting the streets. Living on the streets is very hard, and especially being a woman. I mean, I've had guns pointed at me. I've been left for dead. If I got raped, oh well, I shouldn't have been out here. This is just another part of my journey. This is my fault because I abandoned all my kids, and this is what I get for it. This is the payment that I'm gonna have. When I was coming to Beautiful Feet, I came here for one reason, that was to sleep and to get something to eat. Coming up to the church, you know, I'd look at the Bible and stuff, and then I'd go back out on the streets and I would do the exact same thing. And it was like this yo-yo of life that I lived in for 9 years. When I went to jail that night for prostitution, I just knew in my heart there was something different happening. I was sitting in the jail cell and I was reading John 8:3-11. The word was telling me how a woman was caught in adultery and how the Pharisees was wanting to come in and slam dunk her on the floor, you know, and like, what are you gonna do with this woman? You know, she's done this, this and that. I looked down on the ground and I saw the angel of the Lord knelt down there. He was writing not guilty. He didn't look at me. He didn't talk to me. He just was knelt down on the ground. God was redeeming me that night. He was cleansing me. And just his presence was enough to change my life forever. After I got out of jail, I got discipled, and I realized that I hadn't forgiven a lot of things in my life. I could forgive others, but it was so hard to forgive me. God taught me how to deal with Pam. and how to live in my own skin and to walk this walk with Jesus. And then before my mother passed away, all the ugliness was going away. I could see her as a mom. I had nothing but brokenness and darkness in my heart to give him. As I poured it out to him, he poured himself into me, and he gave me himself. His word tells me he'll never forsake me. And he also says my mother and father will forsake me, but he will hold me in his right hand.
Boy, what Pam's talking to all of us about today is the great exchange. And it's so hard to believe because you can't find it anywhere else. You know, the amazing thing about the Father heart of God is that you can't do enough bad stuff to make him stop loving you. You can't do enough stuff to make him see you as hopeless, because what he's offering you is the great exchange. If you will, in faith, not because you've earned it, not because you've done something to be rewarded for, not because you're sorry enough, you just come in faith because he is who he is and you've run out of options. And you say, God, Jesus, this is what you died for. This is what you paid the price for. It was for me. It was for my brokenness. It was for the choices I've made, whether you do them ignorantly or deliberately. Everything we do has consequences, everything. And sometimes we learn that so late, but it doesn't matter how old you are, how much you've done, how far you've gone. The arms of Jesus stretched out on the cross are always stretched out for you, always open to you. And the words he utters are, come to me. Let me do the great exchange for you. Let me take your garbage, your junk, your history, your pain, what's been done to you, what you've done to others. Give me that. The reason he asks us that is there's a factor of trust in that. You have to trust that he's going to take it and do something with it. Trust him today. There is nowhere else you're going to find this, but get this. Not only does he take our junk, he replaces it with his love, with his light, with his hope, with his forgiveness, with a fresh start, a clean slate, not a patched up old one, a brand new clean slate, a fresh start. And then Pam said something really important. She was changed by that vision she had of the angel bending down and kneeling on the ground writing not guilty. But she said, then I got discipled. You see, she knew she needed to change her thinking. She needed to change what was in her heart. There were people she needed to forgive, and she had to learn how to forgive herself. Listen, it doesn't all happen like that. You didn't get in the trouble you're in like that. Give God a chance to resurrect you, to give you the life he created you to have. He's known you all along. He knows you by name. Your name is carved in the palm of his hand, his word says. Come home to the Father heart of God today, will you? Just pray right now where you are. Jesus, I am a sinner in need of a Savior. And today I say yes to you. I acknowledge your death was for my sin. Your resurrection brought me life. And today I'm asking you to come and live in my heart. I'm asking you to give me a fresh beginning, to fill me with your Holy Spirit, to change the way I think and talk and walk and live, and show me how to grow. Disciple me, show me the right people to be connected with, the right places to go to figure out who you are and who I am in you. I receive it all today, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you've prayed that, you've begun the journey. So what do you do now? Well, I'd like for you to call us. You don't have to give us your name or anything, but we'd like to send you this. Pat put it together just for you. It's called A New Day. What do you do now that you've invited Christ into your heart? How do you grow? How do you begin to live differently? This is free, and it's our gift to you. 1-800-700-7000. Call. We'll send it out to you today. Pat?
Siri. When we come back, we'll bring it on with this question from a viewer named Dale. Quote, so many people are suffering because of the Affordable Care Act. Why is there not a plan by the current Congress to help? Well, I've got the answer to that coming up next.
Well, many of you have sent in email questions, and we'd like to bring it on and answer some of them right now. Pat, this first one comes from Dale, who says, so many people are suffering because of the Affordable Care Act. Why is there not a plan by the current Congress to help?
Oh, there have been many plans, but Obama will veto them all. They can't get past his veto because he doesn't want to acknowledge that his signature legislation is a complete failure. So he's going to block efforts in Congress. There'll be many bills in Congress that change it. And what Trump said, and it's exactly right, if we have health savings accounts, if we have portability of plans across state lines, and we have competition of the number of companies, a lot of things can be done very quickly, but none of them can be done because Obama ought to veto them all. So if he's no longer president, and there's somebody of another party, then they can fix it. Otherwise, it'll continue as bad as it is and get worse. The Hillary Care was the predecessor of Obamacare, and it actually caused criminal sanctions against doctors who took patients outside of the prescribed group. I mean, it was draconian. So, they're up against some serious problems, but the Congress can pass it. They have passed and can pass other things. What?
This is a viewer who says, Pat, I thought partial birth abortion was against the law, signed into law by President Bush in 2003. Did something change?
Well, it didn't change, but in a sense, it's passed Congress a couple times. It was vetoed by Bill Clinton. It finally came into law when the Congress passed it, and George Bush signed it into law. But Hillary Clinton and the radical feminists have said we're against any ban on any part of abortion. We want any restriction on abortion whatsoever. We want to be declared unconstitutional. So they'll try again at the Supreme Court. You get another judge or two on the Supreme Court, and then an appeal is made and it'll be reversed. Or if the control of the Congress goes in another direction and there's a Democrat president in there, they can overturn it. So it's still up for grabs. It's a barbaric technique that should never be allowed in a civilized society. But there are people who want it. Okay.
Well, these are the long-term ramifications you talk about of the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
Positions being filled by liberal judges. Okay, this is Diane who says, I went to church when I was younger and had parents who believed in Jesus Christ. They've done their best. I'd like to ask you, Pat, as a believer for most of your life, if you could sum up wisdom in walking with the Lord for as long as you have, what would you say to young believers?
The Apostle Paul said of a truth, I lie not, I die daily. There has to be a surrender of yourself on an ongoing basis. There has to be time in the Word daily. There has to be prayer. And there has to be a willingness to forgive things that are done and to listen to what the Bible says and to follow those things. And when you do sin, which we all do, we ask God's cleansing forgiveness. The Bible says if we walk in the light as He is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ continuously cleanses us from all sin. So it's a walking in the light. And so when you go astray, then you've got to come back to where you were, and then you've got to ask forgiveness, and He'll do that too. But that's how you do it. And I think John Wesley said, there's not a day that goes by that I don't plead the blood of Christ. So we ask His blood for we're all sinners. Okay?
Yeah. Here's a quick one. Why can't people submit their voting ballots with their thumbprints to eliminate fraud? We have the technology to do it.
Listen, the Democrats, again, have opposed voter IDs. In Texas right now, there's a thing to get a voter ID. We have IDs for driving. We have IDs for getting on airplanes. We have IDs for all kinds of things, but somehow we need to clean the voter rolls up. There may be millions of people who are not qualified to vote. They're on the rolls, but we need to get through that opposition. Why don't we do it? Because there are people who like to have open, fraudulent voting rolls. Well, we leave you with today's Power Minute. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. See you tomorrow. God bless you.